Penultimate segment of this week's episode of Implicit Bias. That means it is the second to last segment of the week. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. We're in the Mr. Lester's TSPL, located somewhere in downtown Lafayette, Louisiana. And it's been a tremendously fun show. We got a great crew here this week. We've actually got a remote crew this week here. John Mode is actually coming to us from Dania Beach, Florida, outside, obviously, of Louisiana. He calls it the TSPL South, but really Mr. Lester's is, so we're going to figure out a name for that, John. I don't know what you're going, but you said you had something on the XRP conversation from last segment. So yes. I got to figure out what's going on here.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Right? So I have a theory. I'm going to seed some conspiracy here.
No, not on this show.
Yeah. Right? So there's a focus on going into a digital currency, right? And then again, we go back to this power players thought process, right? There's people who don't want to lose power. They obviously relate to the game on the bigger coins like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Shortly after Bitcoin gets to, let's call it 68,000 or so, all of a sudden you have the advent of the meme coin.
Yeah. Meme
coins are similar to a lot of other things that are
Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, yeah,
Hawktua, your what's it called, Pepe. There's a bunch of meme coins, but they have this air of volatility to them that is far above and beyond. I mean, you're talking 20,000% gains day one, and all of a sudden the meme coin becomes a thing. And I can't help but think of the most reliable form of separating a fool from his money than a slot machine, right? I give you $1, you get to push a button, see some bright lights and some stuff, and then I'll give you back 95 cents. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. But the goal of that is to.
Well, I think we just lost John. John was talking too long. Either that or did you mess up your own setup, John?
Is that better?
Yeah. What'd you do? You kick something?
Something. Where was I?
You were separating a fool from his money.
Yeah, and so you've got this wildly volatile option that distracts you from Bitcoin and other very stable token coins, right? So, and even some of the ones that are actually fungible, like Ripple, right? So if you've got this moment where you can create a little bit of chaos and distract the general population so that you can hoard all the wealth as you've become accustomed to, are meme coins the circus?
So I think I understand where you're going. I'm going to try and put this maybe in a shorter thought process, which is, let's do a hit piece on all crypto on 60 Minutes. See if we can tank it so the people who have all the money can consolidate the real stuff while people are dealing with all the extraneous stuff that really doesn't matter.
Well, everyone else is fighting with the whirlwind.
Yeah.
They can just take what they have in the core and reassess it and reevaluate it.
Look, and it almost actually ties into maybe the next story that we've got, and it's crazy how this is, which is the consolidation as people try to consolidate power, they can try to consolidate wealth. There are a few things on this planet that, as the old saying goes, you will never make more of. Anybody know what it is that God will never make more of, that saying?
Land.
Land. So it's actually funny that in the past week we have seen, and part of this is just bad social media. Part of this is just straight up bad social media. Video of what they are calling underground cities. Now, let's talk about the tens of thousands of acres of underground storage that exists
even
in Minnesota, Montana. I mean, you've got all of these, they're basically mines that have been abandoned that they have now turned into storage, and you've got really cool, dry conditions that make for great storage, and they've been there forever.
Yeah.
And look, this isn't the first time this happened. Renee, remember this? You might. The Ford Maverick.
Yep.
Remember that? What movie made it famous? Do y'all remember?
No.
No.
Mel Gibson,
I don't remember.
Mad Max?
I know the
Mad Max.
Mad Max made
no,
the Maverick famous?
no.
Yeah.
That was not the Ford Maverick.
That wasn't?
That was an AMC.
Oh, you're right. So
Anyway.
anyway, the Ford produced the Maverick, came out with it, produced tons of them.
Oh, yeah.
And said, they're not selling. And they looked at dropping the price, doing all this other stuff, and Ford couldn't move them. So what did they do?
They put them in
Ford-
storage.
In storage. Where was the storage?
Underground.
Underground. And they stored over 100,000 cars underground for years
Plenty of space.
Until it worked.
until the price equalized.
Yeah.
So the underground storage story, to me, is, again, to go back to what John was talking about, where we hit the bread and circuses conversation. Because we may not have massively populated underground cities. We may have tens of thousands of acres of underground storage, but it's not an underground city.
Not yet.
But we may also have, Caleb, dumbs. So for those who don't know what a dumb is, and you can see it on Caleb's face, I'm not calling him dumb. Maybe I am. I'm not. Deep underground military base.
Yeah.
Dumb. I've never been to one. What I do know is we have NORAD, which is in a mountain.
And look,
NORAD is the North American Radar Defense.
yeah, some along. You can find them right now to track Santa if you want to find them. Or if you leave outside Fort Carson and you walk about 500 yards up the mountain, they'll stop you and tell you where you are and tell you to turn around. But NORAD on the surface isn't a deep underground military installation.
On the surface.
On the surface. How deep does it go and where does it go? What else does it entail?
And the other question is, are civilians trying to do the same thing? In 2024, the bingo card had on it Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, who's the bad bald-headed guy that owns Amazon? Bezos.
Yep.
They're all building underground bunkers.
And they're buying old silos.
Yeah.
All of them are buying old silos and converting them. And these silos are massive. And they're all self-sustaining. And you can set up, if you believe the whole, what's the video game, Fallout and all that kind of stuff, you can build these massive cities underground in a silo that are self-sustaining and self-sufficient for pennies on the dollar because the government's auctioning them off. Is the government really auctioning them off?
I mean, Alan, I'm curious if you're going to chime in on this one. I'm sure we have a couple of these up in Monroe, right?
I don't think the land's favorable for that, but no, Caleb was right. Fallout, the whole conspiracy is actually there's a resource war with another country, and all of a sudden nuclear Armageddon. But it's, hey, the people who engineered the underground shelters started it because they sold it all off. Government was tied in, all that kind of stuff. So maybe that's something to look at. I don't know.
I just think, going back to John, your thought process of consolidating, we talked about consolidation of money. We talked about consolidation of power, consolidation of information. Now it's consolidation of land, right? So, John, I'm curious as to your thoughts as to how this ties in. Is this all that theory of unraveling everything that you were talking about with regards to the show? See if we can bring you back in.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, probably, right? So when the powerful are getting desperate, right? It feels like Armageddon. It feels like the end of everything. So now you start to prepare in case of whatever you're trying to protect that. So now we're going to go try to bury it like a, kind of like a dog. But it makes me think about, have you seen a
live dog,
tunnels?
John? Did you just said a dog? Like specifically, I mean, what are we burying here? Or are you burying it like a dog would bury a bone? I mean, let's make sure we get the whole metaphor. Or simile, because I used like.
I'll let you fill in your own blanks.
Is that a Christy Gnome reference?
John, did you catch that? He said, is that a Christy Noem reference?
I don't know who Christy Gnome is. Who's that?
She was going to try and attempt to run for president, and then wrote in her book that she shot her dog in the backyard and it was like her downfall. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. No, but it makes me it makes me think when you talk about kind of preparing and all this. Have you seen the tunnels system in Switzerland?
No.
So during World War II, instead of getting involved in the war, Switzerland dug incredible, like a bunker system through all of the mountains. And they actually set up some really, really clever defense systems that like would just level entire valleys should the Nazis try and come through. But you can do tours of it. It doesn't like they never used it. It's just a system that does, that was there now.
Look, I hope we don't have to level an entire valley, but what we do need to do is take a break. We'll come back. Final segment of this week's episode, Implicit Bias. Don't miss it. Tons of fun. More weekly whiskeys. More for you right after this.